Good evening, I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive, and welcome to the latest in our series of Town Hall Conversations. Because of the age of COVID, we're not able to do these meetings in public with a room full of people to ask questions, so we're doing them virtually using our county Facebook Live account, and we're happy that you've taken some time to be with us tonight. In the past few weeks, we've talked about a variety of issues: economic development, housing, issues that affect young people, issues that affect women. And today, on November 11th, the day that we celebrate Veterans Day, our topic tonight are the issues that relate to veterans. And my guest here, and we're both going to try to answer questions back and forth, is Ron Tochi. Ron is the Commissioner, Director of our Veteran Services Agency, former county legislator, former state assemblyman, a veteran himself, and a person who has spent his life really working on behalf of veteran services. So we're happy to have Ron here, and we'll chat a little bit together about some of these things. We have picked this date for this topic for obvious reasons. This is the 11th day in the 11th month, and at the end of World War I, the armistice that was signed that ended World War I came at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, and that has become the day that we set aside for veterans. But of course, on that first armistice day, the expectation was that was the end of the war to end all wars. And as we found out, that was not the last of our wars. We went out having an even greater world war within 20 years. And then we've had a variety of military actions. They may have been described not in the term of war, but police actions. But nonetheless, Americans went to Korea, to Vietnam, into the Middle East on more than one occasion, and into a number of other hot spots around the world. Some of them put their lives on the line. Some of them lost their lives as part of doing that which America has asked our young sons and daughters to do. When we talk about veterans, I think, and this is why I'm happy to have Ron here to discuss these things, and then we'll take some of the questions, some of which have been submitted already by individuals, and we'll invite you to comment in the chat line of our Facebook page. Catherine Chaffee, our Director of Communications, is here to try to ferret some of those out. We're not going to get to all of them tonight, but in a few minutes we'll give you an email that you can direct to and a phone number so you can follow up with some of these different issues. But the issues really, as I view it, Ron, falls into two categories. The first category are the things that we do to recognize and honor our veterans, because it is a sacrifice that's been made. Maybe it's the ultimate sacrifice, which we remember on Memorial Day, but it's a sacrifice no matter when it is to have served in the military, to put on the uniform of your country, give up 2 to 4 years of your life or more. And then the second portion of it is the services that we provide our veterans and their various needs. And that, of course, is what you're doing. And Ron has served not only in my administration, but previously in Rob Astorino's administration. So the acknowledgement of his skill set spans both parties and both administrations. But in the honoring side, what we saw today all across Westchester County, as we see on Memorial Day with a different theme, because there's the ultimate sacrifice of Memorial Day, we see some of it on Flag Day on June 14th, when we celebrate the symbol of America, the American flag, which oftentimes immediately ties into our veterans. We see some of it on July 4th as a Independence Day holiday. The birthday of the Marines comes one day before Veterans, so that's the day we have it. But in many ways, because we have not had the full conscription of every able-bodied man as we did during World War II, now the number of people who serve in the military are a small fraction of the society at large. And I do remember, I said this at one of my stops today, that I remember as a kid watching a parade of veterans, and it was a line that didn't seem to end. I was maybe 10 years old at the time, and these were the men of my father's generation who were 40 and 45 years old, who had fought in World War II. And in the 1960s, it was everybody. Every able-bodied man basically went to World War II and or fought in Korea at the same time. Now it's a very different situation, because this volunteer army, you have a certain percentage of households that have sons and daughters in the military, but it's not universal. And so in many ways, we've gotten away from a societal appreciation for what the roles of veterans are, because it isn't as widespread. And when I look around now and I see those who fought in Vietnam, which was the last time we had an active draft of young men to go to war, those were individuals who were a little older than I was at the time. And so now those men are in their 70s and in some cases 80s, and that is the most recent touch that many people have with veterans that have actually, seen conflict on behalf of America. The second half of the honoring portion, where we make sure that on those special days and when a veteran reaches a certain age that we honor them, is the actual needs that these veterans have. And the veterans' needs differ. It depends on how recently you were a veteran, what war you were in might pivot what kinds of benefits you have. So that's some of what I want to cover tonight. First of all, though, Ron, aside from what you've done as an assemblyman, heading the Veterans Committee in the New York State Assembly, your role now as Veteran Services Agency Director for this time, you yourself put on the uniform of your country. Tell me a little bit about your personal service in the military.
Well, I was actually drafted in 66. And I took my basic training at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and from there to Fort Sill, Oklahoma for artillery training. And then I volunteered for the airborne. And
don't they tell you the military don't volunteer for anything?
yeah, I know. I was a little crazy. I'm still crazy. And we get into politics, you got to be a little crazy.
Yeah, you got to be a little crazy.
But from there, I met some great people. I traveled around the world, for that matter, and I was very, very fortunate. It was in the middle of the Vietnam stuff, and I was very, very fortunate. We were the last unit to come back from the Dominican Republic, and from that, we were probably some of the last people to go to Vietnam, but we didn't get involved in the real hot skirmishes.
Right.
So I came out of the service, and then from there, ran, and you helped me become a county legislator and sustain myself in that position for 5 terms, and then went on to the state assembly. I was always anxious to try to become a committee chair or to participate in veteran services, even from the county level. And when I got into the assembly, I was lucky to be appointed chairman of the Vets Committee. And I stayed there for almost 15 years. So I built a presence, met a lot of people, understood the problems firsthand from being in service, and then learning from people as they came back home. And I considered it a real privilege to serve, and that was my niche. That's what I really wanted to do. And then I was very, very happy that when you were elected, you allowed me to continue to try to make this premier veteran service agency in the state of New York. And I think we are. And I'm very, very proud of that. And thank you for allowing us to do the things that we do.
Well, I want you to, before we finish here tonight, I want you to reference some of the good people that work with you.
Yep.
And give credit to Dan and Christine and the whole crew.
Yeah.
Just help me understand one thing, which is probably the pivotal element of all of this. You come back from your military service, you're honorably discharged, you come back into civilian society. What was that moment like when you came back to civilian society?
Well, it was a lot different than it is now. I think it was different in the sense that was a very unpopular war, as you remember. And a lot of people resented the fact that they weren't given any kind of acknowledgement for their service. So a lot of those people transitioned into the dark side. A lot of them were alcoholic and drug addicted, and some never recovered, and there weren't nearly the kind of services that we provide now.
Right.
It was after the Vietnam conflict or war that they actually put together the universal veteran service agencies throughout the states. And the federal government was funding some of it, the state governments were funding some. So it was a difficult transition for many people. I was lucky. I had a good support system with family and friends and everybody else, so I have no complaints. But I knew a lot of people that served at the same time that did not fare well at all.
Right.
And today, a lot of those same people are still on the street with post-traumatic stress, which they didn't even know about then.
Right.
Others with all kind of depression, and they're addicted in different ways. So today, fortunately, we have almost thousands, myriads of services that provide help to veterans with any kind of disorder. And if we can't provide it ourselves here in the county, we have a reference chart where we know they can get help.
Right.
The sad thing is that we don't know a lot of people that come back home with problems.
Right.
We can't get the information from the Department of Defense because of privacy privacy rules, and we've been pushing to change that for years.
Right.
If I could get the names of people who are ready to be discharged even 90 days before they get out, we could communicate with them and make
Right.
them understand
Let them know what services are
where
available
the,
to
where
them.
the help is, and we will
From a
help
local
them and help
standpoint.
their families at the same time.
Right. Well, and we also, without getting too deeply into this, we know that the Vietnam War was also a very different war than some of the wars that preceded it. It was a guerrilla war attacking Americans. So it wasn't the classic front that we had either in Korea or in World War II. The potential of problems were also exacerbated because we went through as a society the drug culture in the 60s that is still with us today didn't exist quite the same way in past years, and creating a lot of complications for people when they came back. So let me ask the basic fundamental question that one of our viewers asked: how do I qualify for veteran benefits? I assume that the person is asking, what are the eligibility criteria in general, and how do you start the process of qualification?
Well, first of all, if you think you are in any way disabled because of a service-related incident, you should call us. We ask you for your basic information, which is your discharge papers, DD 214 they call it. And from that,
Right.
we can tell you if you are eligible for any special services. If you feel that you just want to know about what benefits are given to veterans who honorably served, we can supply you with that information. Most of the time, there are people calling that are homeowners that are looking for a property tax exemption.
Right.
And I'm very, very pleased to say that the county offers the maximum amount allowed by state law for property tax exemption. And then each individual town, village offer whatever amounts that they voted by their legislative bodies. Aside from that, everybody is eligible to use the medical system, which is very, very good, in spite of what a lot of people talk about.
Right.
It's the biggest medical system in the world. And you would come into any hospital, show that you're a veteran, and you can use their services. You will be just like you would if you were going to a private hospital. You're subject to a copay. If you are disabled with any kind of a rating, 5, 10, 15, depending upon what the rating is, you're eligible for maybe a bigger discount or having to pay nothing. So we can do all these things with the access to the DD 214. Right. It tells you your service, your time, what happened to you in the service, and so on.
And let me tie in, as you're pointing these things out, let's tie into some of the questions we've got. We have a question from an individual who said he requested a copy of his discharge papers, DD 214, right, over 6 months ago, hasn't received it yet.
That's
what
true.
can be done to speed up the process?
Yeah. What's happened is, if it is an emergency situation, a funeral, a burial, or some nature that is just as important, we can expedite it. There's a special number. But only then can we expedite it.
Right,
the COVID has shut down so many agencies, it's almost impossible to get them to do anything expeditiously.
Right.
So I just ask them to be patient. But if they need this for any special reason, a discount from college credits or something like that, we can get it for them. So I would urge them to call us.
Okay. And we'll mention this number a few times. I assume we'll post it throughout. If you want to call our Veteran Services Agency, use the general Westchester County number 995-2000. Ask for the Veteran Services Agency. There'll be a connection to the office.
Yep.
Or you can, we've established an email address for the purposes of today. And so anybody who's watching this today has a question, we'll cluster it and then provide it to Ron and his team. And that's veteran, one word, not plural, veteran@westchestergov.com. So as you're listening to Ron and I have the conversation, any of the answers, if there's a question that drives off of it, send us an email. In every case, Ron, it's certainly going to be the specifics of the ask that will drive the train. But just to repeat what Ron's answer was on this one, is that the National Personnel Records Center in St. Louis closed down for 4 months during the pandemic, and they did a phase 1 opening in June. They just did a phase opening 2 in October. That means limited staff coming back on board. So the backlog, I gather, is pretty significant on the DD 214s. We talked about property tax exemption for veterans. There are 3 different exemptions, if you can talk about them: alternative veterans exemption, Cold War veterans exemption, or eligible funds exemption. And I gather with each of these, you have to go to the assessor in your community, identify that you are a veteran. and because it's going to change your assessment, it applies to potentially county, city, town, and village taxes. It does not apply to special district taxes. So there are communities where you have a library district, Mamaroneck, Mount Kisco have library districts. Doesn't apply to that, doesn't apply to a fire district, but it does apply. It has to be adopted by those different jurisdictions we've just mentioned. It also can apply to schools, but school districts have not all opted into it.
That's
I know we
correct.
as a county opted in. When I served on the Rise City Council, we opted in. Almost, if not all villages, towns, and cities have, but school districts have not necessarily. Just tell us a little bit about the three different breakdowns, Ron, as it's listed again: alternative veterans, Cold War veterans, and eligible funds exemptions. Obviously, I'm a little.
Yeah, no. If you were a World War II veteran, which are few left, okay, it would be different than if you served during the Vietnam era,
Right.
or even lately during Iraq and Afghanistan. And the best thing to do, if you're confused at all, is to go to the assessor, as you suggested, and show them if you possibly have a disability, a rating from the military. That makes a big difference in the amount of money that you would have exempted from your taxes also.
Right.
And at the same time, you were right. It depends on the village, the municipality, the city. Almost all in Westchester have opted in at some level. The state gave you the option of different levels. We always tried to advocate for the top level, but some communities didn't want to do that. For whatever reason, I don't know, because they don't lose anything.
Right.
Because whatever the exemptions are for whatever few veterans there are in the community, they pass it on to the other taxpayers. Right. So it might amount to an extra $50 a year for everybody else, or whatever it might be. But I don't think most people care about that. And I've testified in front of a whole bunch of different municipalities,
Right.
and they all passed them unanimously. But aside from that, the biggest savings is with the school taxes.
Right.
That was a big savings to many, many veterans. And fortunately, some of the bigger school districts did opt in at the maximum amount. So it gives you a big savings, and it allows you to save enough so you can live more comfortably.
And probably the first step is to call the assessor in your town or city.
You actually
and
have
they'll tell
to
you.
bring your DD 214 into the assessor's office.
Okay.
If you don't have one, call our office, and we'll be able to provide you with the information. Even if we can't get a DD 214,
Right.
we will be able to get the information with an affidavit that you are a veteran, you're disabled, or whatever you might be. And we've had a lot of those calls.
And one of our questions focuses on the fact, and we've seen this even in some of our events, where we just recently did a joint event for Gold Star Mothers. There is a Mount Vernon Veteran Services Agency and a Yonkers Veteran Services Agency. How do those municipal Veteran Services Agency interact with the county?
The Yonkers Municipal Service Agency has the same powers and duties that we do on a county level. However, they're not funded as good as we are, and they right now are in transition. They only have one service officer. So they're referring a lot of their clients to us. We're Westchester County, so we do it anyway.
Right.
Mount Vernon is just started up again. They have nobody that's doing real counseling, claims, or anything like that. So we're doing both. And the only ones that there are is Yonkers, Mount Vernon, and then it's us.
Right.
So thank God we're able to be funded enough that we can provide the services to any veteran. We don't turn anybody away. We haven't had to do that. And even though we are working remotely right now because of the COVID,
Right.
we're able to keep abreast. We're filing claims more than I ever dreamed we would. And our average age for veterans being serviced in our county is about 75. We've got World War II, Korea, and Vietnam,
Right.
plus the younger guys who are not yet coming in for all kinds of services. But we're doing what we have to do, and it's a tribute to the people in our county and to you and the county legislature for giving us the resources that we need to do it.
Well, I think it's a tribute, too, to the fact that in Westchester County, regardless of the two political parties, regardless of which administration or which individuals are running the Board of Legislators, that we've always had a joint commitment to the veterans
Yeah.
community. So it's not one of the things that we kick around and disagree about. We're all in equal commitment to it, which is a good sign for those who have given service and don't want to be the flavor of the day. They want to know that they've got, an ongoing relationship. Very simple question we have. How do I obtain a VA, Veterans Administration, how do I obtain a VA ID card?
Those are basically done by the federal government, okay? And again, we have people that come into our office to take photos and provide those cards. However, with COVID, again, nobody's coming into the offices, so I
Right.
just ask people to be patient, and you can even go online. But online, it's the same wait. So With that said, the best thing to do if you live in Westchester County is wait and apply for the favor card, which we have passed. And that favor card identifies you as a veteran, a resident of the county. It also gives you the opportunity to take advantage of all veteran-friendly vendors who give discounts to veterans throughout the county. And in Westchester County right now, we estimate there's about 35,000 veterans still around, which is pretty good.
No, it's a significant number of
Okay,
people.
it is, and that doesn't count their families, wives, sons, daughters, aunts, uncles, you name it.
Right.
It's a big population.
So the favor card is locally based.
Yes.
And what it does is represent, in essence, an ID card locally.
It gives you
And
a
of course,
photo
the VA
ID.
ID card has the benefits, the VA hospital
Right.
and all the other types
Right.
of national benefits and
Now,
so forth.
anybody to supplement that, anybody that has a medical problem or uses the medical VA, once you go the first time, they'll give you a card,
Right.
take a photo and so on. Again, though, right now, I don't know if that's happening.
Okay. We have some questions that are very specific, which we may have the answer to, we may not. And if we don't, then we'll certainly do some homework and get back to the individual. You're welcome to use that email address that I mentioned, veteran@westchestergov.com. The first one, obviously an individual circumstance. I served for 30 months active duty, 1987 to 1989. Am I eligible for the GI Bill? And I gather that's a 36-month minimum, isn't it, for the GI
Yeah.
Bill?
Yeah, he would be eligible,
Okay.
as long as he's honorably discharged.
Right.
Active for 3 years?
Well, no, actually, lists 3 years, but this individual said 30 months active duty.
That's okay, as long as he's active one day.
One day within the calendar year
He would be eligible.
is sufficient?
Yeah, yep.
Okay. Well, I would
Yeah,
we'll direct
tell
him to your agency.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll,
for
we'll
some
direct
assistance.
them to the right people.
Next question. Again, this is something that people who are involved in the military at some point understand. We understand that in January of 2020, the Department of Defense expanded commissary and exchange shopping privileges.
Yes.
Who's eligible for that?
Any veteran who's honorably discharged now can participate. They're looking for people, but again, I don't know what the regulations are now with the COVID.
And how accessible
But the
it is.
commissary's up at West Point,
Right.
and there's discounts, there's benefits there, but there's so much going on online. You could almost acquire the same benefit and savings as if you drove all the way to West Point,
Right.
unless you're going to buy a big ticket item,
Right.
which would give you a substantial savings.
Okay. Well, once again, they can inquire, but
Yeah, that's changed. That
right.
used to be you had to be a lifer, somebody served 20 years or whatever. Now it's everybody.
very good. We've done a lot of different activities to honor veterans. We were just recently at
Right.
the Gold Star Mother event up at Kensico Dam as an example of recognizing folks. And then, of course, when Playland is open, and it wasn't open this year, we couldn't do it because of COVID, we've usually had a military Veterans Appreciation Day, which allows the people who are veterans to come with their families and enjoy the benefits of Playland, without charge, and you can go about, and they usually put a barbecue out for them and so forth. One individual indicated that, they thought that we ought to have, more solemn type of situation, and I guess possibly what they don't know is the other solemn events that we have at Lasden and elsewhere. But just, on the hope that we open Playland next year, tell us a little bit about what that Veterans Appreciation Day is like.
That is our biggest event of the year. We get in excess of 5 or maybe 10,000 people come to that event. And it's a way that the county wants to say thank you to veterans. Even though it's a solemn day, and we certainly represent the thanks that we give to people, especially those that made the ultimate sacrifice, we felt that it's a time that we should also allow the families to celebrate the sacrifices and the courage that so many families participated with their veterans, or especially the loved one. And it's been very, very well received. And I believe that it's appropriate because we do, as you suggested, have a lot of solemn ceremonies, including before we open Playland, we do a tribute to all those veterans. And at the same time, the children really do learn about what the day is all about and who paid for it. So I would suggest that we continue to do the solemn ceremonies, but we also should celebrate, what these people went through. It's almost like the tears and triumphs of war.
Right.
We certainly cry about the loss, and we want to celebrate the benefits of democracy and freedom carrying on.
Right. And I know that before we have, the celebratory portion of the day, the barbecue and the fun with families, we do have a ceremony on the stage.
Yeah.
And we always have,
what I meant. We celebrate
the patriotic songs and the appreciation of our flag and all
The
those
Girl
types of things
Scouts and the
important.
Boy Scouts
Right.
come and so,
All of those things
it's a learning experience.
Right. All those things make a big difference. Now, we've established, and again, before my tenure in office, we've established at Lasden Park a permanent place to recognize our veterans. Tell us a little bit about what is at Lasden Park that connects to the veterans community.
Yeah, well, Lasden Park is officially the county's war memorial. Every single war, from the Revolutionary War on, is represented in our Trail of Honor. And each one, and you've been there several times, you understand people that want to take the time, travel to Lasden, which is right off of 684, really, in Cross River.
It's a beautiful environment. It was an original homestead
Absolutely.
that was donated by one of the many wealthy families of Westchester County, and it has an arboretum there and
Correct.
wonderful grounds. Catherine Chaffee, who's our director of communication, raves about it. She has 3 young boys.
Oh, it's
and
beautiful.
They're there as many times as they can go for one event or the other. Little train presentation
Well,
at the holiday
there's
season.
also
and so
the
forth.
museum. Our
Right.
Veterans Museum is on the grounds, so people can spend an afternoon and walk the trail, which is going to take you a half hour or better.
Yeah.
And then end it at the museum. It's a beautiful place for a picnic, and the grounds are magnificent. And it really pays tribute to the special people that served in our nation.
We also have a tribute to one of our brave man's best friends there, where we recently had a statue of a brave animal,
We did.
service animal.
We did. We have a statue now of representing the dogs that served our military, which is really special. And we're concentrating now on trying to put together the resources to actually celebrate the horse who burst a beast of burden from the beginning of wartime. You can't think of how many millions of horses were killed and slaughtered in battles. And it's another monument that we're thinking about putting in place. But it's a beautiful setting. I think it represents well the county. Unfortunately, it's further up county, so people that live in Yonkers and Mount Vernon or Rochelle or Greenberg have to travel a little bit. But in the summer, you can't get a better place
It's a beautiful.
to meditate and to
Right.
think about what it represents.
Well, I must say, growing up myself in Mount Vernon, on the south side of Mount Vernon, literally a block and a half from the borderline of the Bronx, knowing the parts of northern Westchester and the park system of Westchester County, I knew where Wilson Woods was. You know, I knew where Tibbetts was in
Brook.
Yonkers, the pools, as a kid, and a little bit up the coast, Playland Beach and Glen Island Beach. But it's really a beautiful park system. And the fact that it's all part of something that every Westchester resident can access and can really appreciate from one corner to the other, and all different kinds of recreation, and certainly to honor our veterans at Lasden is one of those many types of things. So, Ron, if I'm, I don't know that if I'm watching, I'm necessarily this, but if I'm active in a Rotary Club, a Lions Club, Kiwanis, maybe a Chamber of Commerce entity, maybe I'm with some community entity, and I want to have a speaker. I want to have some type of, maybe set up a ceremony of some sort that honors the veterans. Can they get that kind of assistance from your
Yeah,
office? Can they
yeah.
call you?
Yeah, we do it often. We urge them to do that. We have veterans who actually volunteer to go to schools and talk to the young kids. And you and I have been around, for years doing the same thing. We would urge anybody that wants that to call our office. And we do get several requests, but continue to do that, because I think that that's a learning process which is void right now in a lot of the schools.
Right.
Military history doesn't exist. And I think it's sad because, let's face it, the nation's been shaped by wars. And I don't look at that as a bad side, but
Well, it's important to understand the flow, the flow of history. How about color guard? Is it possible to access a veteran's color guard for someone that has a particular type of event? Can they get that kind of information from your office?
We can give them the information. I can't guarantee that we could always provide
Right.
from our office or through the county police or, the Emerald Society. But there's a myriad of local chapters
Right.
that have color guard, and depending upon where it is and who it's for, we can direct them to the right place if we can't do it.
Right. The next question is one that I have to answer, which is there any thought to place a veterans agency in northern Westchester? It's very difficult for elderly veterans in the northern part of the county to go down to South Westchester. Well, Ron has asked for that money for a while. I'm hopeful that during my tenure, before it ends, we'll have sufficient money to have a branch presence in the north. I know you did take it on the road, did a little road show,
Yeah.
and you were in Mount Kisco one day a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
and,
we've done a
and
lot
some
of
other
Katona.
places.
We've done
But
them all.
certainly, if dollars and cents always being important. This year and hopefully next year we'll be cutting property taxes a
Well,
bit.
in all deference to your question, though, we do provide home services. If someone calls and they're an elderly veteran, or they can't travel for whatever reason, we make home visits.
Oh, okay.
So nobody's going to be deprived of any kind of service because they can't get out of their home.
So make a note of that. If you live in the northern tier of the county,
Absolutely.
Peekskill, Cortland, Buchanan, Yorktown, Somers, North Salem, write it down, call the office, and we'll come to you.
And you yourself have come with me and presented medals to people
We have.
in different communities because we've done it together. So nobody should be worried about not getting services because they're in the northern part of the county.
Right.
We'll take care of it.
Let's talk a little bit about, I know this is something we've worked on during my tenure here. Service-disabled veteran-owned businesses set
Yes.
aside goals for Westchester County contracts. We had that meeting over on Central Avenue at one of the breakfast groups. Tell us where we see ourselves in that effort.
Well, you actually were one of the prime movers. We passed it in the county legislature, and I think what we need to do now is make it mandatory that when these requests for proposals go out,
Right.
it's listed on there.
Right.
It's not right now. The MBAs, the women's and so on are on, but what we have to do is we have to list the veteran disabled vendor. If we
I'll
can
look
do
off
that,
screen. Somebody take a note of that. so
if
that
we can do
follow up on it.
that'll give us a real good opportunity
Right.
because a lot of these people don't know that they should. We've passed and made a request and urged them
Right.
to support disabled veteran vendors. However, if they don't know about that on the form,
Right.
they don't care.
Right.
So
So that is a factor.
I think
Let's
we'll do
credit
that this year.
legislator Margaret Kunzio, who's the original
Yeah.
author of that deal.
She'll do it.
We were there for that press conference in North Castle at the American Legion Hall when we launched off, and so now we have to make sure we're implementing it as an across-the-board situation. That was a question that we received from one of our friends. You're very connected in the veterans community to the American Legion posts, VFW posts. Historically, we've had more organizations, Jewish war vets, other types of veteran groups like that. I assume because of the advancing age of veterans, those organizations are having greater difficulty staying afloat. What's sort of the general status, Ron, of the various veteran organizations, membership, ability to do service projects, things that would link them together?
Well, you're right. The organized veteran groups are getting older. They don't have as much energy, and a lot of the younger people are not joining the American Legion, the VFWs, and so on and so forth. We have to actually go out and recruit people, and we're doing that. But I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that there's a very, very few new veterans in the United States, and you talked about this in your
Yeah.
beginning. There's only 1.3 million people actively serving in the armed forces throughout the country right now, the lowest number since before World War II.
Right.
And when you think about that, you say, well, how many people could there be? So it's less than 0.5%, maybe less than that.
Right.
So there's not too many people coming out that are going to be veterans, even though there are people that we service that need help. But I think because we have our veterans service group, our committee that you put together for us, we do have representatives from every single veteran organization in the Tri-County area, never mind just Westchester
Right.
County. And we have monthly meetings. We have continued those meetings, even by Zoom. And we take on these questions, and we try to come up with solutions and recommendations to you in the legislature to see how we can make it better. I think what we have to do is really organize ourselves and try to focus on the issues. And most of these issues really have to do with what the feds can do for us.
Right.
I mean, we're doing everything we can. There's all kinds of service agencies, charitable groups, Habitat for Humanity, you name it. We've got Fuller Agency and so on, housing. Also, you didn't mention this, but I think we have to, our Patriot Housing Project, which is probably one of the most successful ventures in the country. We've housed over 600 veterans that were formerly homeless in permanent settings with vouchers for rent supplementation and so on and so forth. We take people off the street. We make sure that they're not addicted. We put them through rehab. We have counseling services. And then we find permanent housing for them. So right now, it's actually zero. They call functionally zero, the number of people on the street that are homeless. That's anybody that we know about.
Right.
And we'll get a call. We'll respond to a train station. Somebody said it's a homeless vet. It may not be. We check them out. So we don't know of any homeless veterans who have not been reported to us that we haven't served. And I think that's a tribute to our county and to the government.
Well, and certainly if anyone out there who's watching knows of a vet who's
Yeah.
in this kind of a circumstance, we want to be able to help them. So reach out to us, use the phone number, 995-2000, and give us a chance to make a connection for them as much as possible. We hear a lot about the problems in the Federal Veterans Agency, Veteran
Yeah.
Administration. Do you have a take on all of that, what you look at it from your standpoint? Obviously, not only at the county level, you've been involved with it at the state level. What do you think, is it a problem, and what do you think needs to be done in order to serve our veterans better?
Well, that's a good question. It's been a problem for the last 40, 50 years, no matter what the administration is. It's the biggest hospital agency in the world, as I suggested. The right hand doesn't always know what the left hand is doing. I've seen secretaries of Veteran Affairs come and go. They all have good intentions, but it's so big, it's almost impossible to get a grasp on it
Right.
and to try to do the right thing. There have been improvements made. A lot of good people have made good improvements. The backlogs as far as claims processing, and those are people that feel that they have a disability that's service-related. That takes forever. I mean, I have people that do claims. One claim could be that thick, could go on for 10 years. Denial. They have doctors that are not veterans. They have people that are pencil pushers that just try to deny every claim. They don't read the information. And we have good people in our office. You know some of them personally. Dana Verisamo, Dan Griffin, Charlotte Trotter. These people get on the phone and waste maybe 2 or 3 hours waiting for somebody live to come on the phone to argue with them and show them the documentation that they say they don't have.
Right.
And that's frustrating as all hell. I just wish that they could somehow just say, look, the presumption should always be on the side of the veteran. That would speed up the operation because they
Right.
don't want to give away the money. Okay, but it's a 9-to-5 job for a lot of people, and that's it. And unfortunately, people that are terminal are waiting, and some of them die before they even get approvals, and they
Right.
don't get anything. So that's the biggest complaint I get all the time. There's just a delay until you die. That's the old saying. But there have been improvements made, over the last 10, 15 years, and the number of services and the agencies that provide professional help
Right.
is just unlimited. We have become, through your administration right now, the funnel for all information. So we're the portal for everything that's professional in terms of services. If we can't do it, we can tell them, well, you should call these people, call that people. It works like that. So that's a good thing. It's gotten better. Now, what you didn't mention also, but you should take pride in it, we have now the Veteran Court, which is up and running. Right now it's virtual because of the COVID again,
Right.
but there's going to be a ribbon cutting and a ceremony which everybody will participate in, and it'll bring some visibility to the fact that we now have a court. Any veteran that gets charged with any kind of a crime anywhere in Westchester County is going to be referred to one central court. Judge David Everett is going to be the judge for that. Thanks to Kathy Davison, our administrative judge, she was able to make that happen. We've been pushing for this for years.
Right.
And now you're going to have not only a punitive court, but it's going to be not a preventive, but a therapy,
restorative, yeah.
where it will actually help the veteran get the kind of treatment that they need. And the rates of recidivism have gone down like 80 to 90% wherever these courts have been established. Started with Judge Russell in Buffalo, and it's all over the country right now. So we're one of the first in Westchester County to have a central court like this, which is, I think, is going to be great. And it gives these people the chance to, a second chance, put it that way. And
Most
most of
give
them,
credit to Judge Kathy Davidson,
Oh,
Ninth
absolutely.
Judicial
Absolutely.
District Administrative Judge, and she's done a lot of innovative programs. We
No
both know her
question.
from New Rochelle.
Yep.
And Judge David Everett next door in Larchmont,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
a veteran himself.
Yes, he is.
Has seen service in Afghanistan
Yeah.
in the more recent period of time, and he's the presiding judge in that court. And you know what I've always found in my corporate life before I came into public affairs, and now my first executive assignment, is that if you put good people in a variety of positions, they come up with brilliant ideas. You might take credit for it. I don't really want to take credit for other people's good ideas. I'm happy that it's happening during the tenure that I have. But I've been impressed in this area and other areas that you just have to give people a bit of freedom
Yeah.
to innovate and to come up with what they think is good, because they're closer to the problem, and they're closer to what the right solution is to the problem than sitting in this particular office and thinking you know everything, which in fact you may know a few things.
Well,
but
we
you don't
were
know
lucky.
everything.
like you said, Judge Everett, a veteran. He really cares, he understands, he
Right.
knows. And Kathy Davison, just a good, solid person.
Yeah.
And she was in the right place at the right time, because we tried many, many years before that.
Right.
Couldn't get it done. She made it happen.
She's had some other initiatives too with access to justice for folks because of the
Yeah.
computerization of many of these court situations, and now there are terminals at various churches around
Yeah.
the place where you can go there to file motions and to accomplish things that you need to do. So all on a good side of it. So when we look at a calendar year, there are certain major events that pop out. We always talk about Memorial Day and Veterans Day that sits at these 6-month intervals with other. What are the other major days that we should always put on our calendar? We've talked about Gold Star Mother and Flag Day. And could you sort of go through what those major event days are in a year?
Well, you could pick every day and pick a battle someplace in a particular war and celebrate, the courage and the sacrifice that some of these people made. But you mentioned it. The Memorial Day is the big deal. Gold Star Mothers now is morphed into Gold Star Moms and Families Day,
Right.
which is great. Okay, Veterans Day since 1954 became a national holiday,
Right.
which is something really special. And then I tell people all the time, I said, every day should be Veterans Day. It really should be. You think about it, the country was founded with the courage and the sacrifice of blood and lives. And, we should be mindful that this was an inheritance, this country, because of these people.
Right.
And we're in a position where if we don't earn it again for ourselves, it's not always going to be ours.
Right.
So I think, and you and I both, and you've used the same quote, George Washington said it best. He said, "The willingness of future generations to serve in time of war, no matter how justified, is directly and proportionally related to the way they perceive how we treat the veterans of the prior wars." He
true.
was a psychologist besides a great general
Right.
and a president. And then you had other great people like Abraham Lincoln and so many, Teddy Roosevelt. They all made these great speeches about, the courage and the sacrifice. And, you think it wasn't just the veterans.
Right.
Their families. Can you imagine the
Oh,
mothers and the
sacrifice,
fathers
sure.
that went through this, waiting and worrying? I think about my mom. They sent home a letter I didn't even know about when I joined the paratroopers. And my mother was hysterical. And I said, what the hell did you do that for? Why did you just send that over? My father said, oh, are you crazy? You know, but, you know, I met so many special people. I can't
Yeah.
begin to tell you. And not that they're war heroes. Some of these people are just solid, good Americans
Yeah.
that love their country, love their families and communities. And, you know, I'm very proud that we're in Westchester County and we have a service agency that does just what George Washington talked about.
Yeah.
Let's take care of these people so younger people will understand down the road. God forbid something happens to me if I'm serving, they're going to take care of me
Right.
and they're going to take care of my family.
There's one thing, too, I always found interesting is the two of the three greatest generals in the history of America that achieved the presidency, George Washington, Dwight Eisenhower, Ulysses Grant being the third one, that both of them as military leaders, from the Revolutionary War to D-Day, you know, two of a number of major moments in which America hung in the balance, they were both very committed to a civilian army, believing that the average American, when called upon to stand up and fight, would do that. And of course, their experiences in the Revolution, different era, in 1776, all the way up to 1940, you know, 41 and 42, 43, 44. But, and they both talked about the equivalent. Eisenhower used the phrase military-industrial complex. Washington talked about no entangling alliances because he didn't want to see sort of the military become an industry unto itself, but rather that you would tap the American spirit of the individual and that we would respond as we did in the War of 1812. Obviously, the horror of the Civil War was one of those moments. I think sometimes we've forgotten about that here, how many boys left the farms of Westchester County to fight in places during that war.
The Revolutionary War.
And the Revolutionary War was fought here.
All volunteer.
Right.
This, you make a good point. This particular army, our military today, all volunteer. First time since the Revolutionary War.
Right.
Can you imagine? I mean, God bless these people. They're the salt of the earth. We owe them a debt we could never repay.
Right.
They don't have to do it. And God knows what they're going through, especially with the political turmoil and the controversy and the country split down the middle with ideology. These people are serving and they're doing the right thing. And I always tell, especially young people, they're not just warriors out there. They're goodwill ambassadors. They're helping people
Right.
that they don't even know rebuild their community. They're helping the children. They're doing all the good things that America is all about. So you make a good point.
Well, a critical element of it. We've been talking with Ron Tochi, who is our Commissioner Director of Veteran Services Agencies here in Westchester County, on this Veterans Day, where we have set aside the 11th day of the 11th month in remembrance of the armistice that ended World War I, in order to honor all of our veterans. As my dad told me when I was watching that first parade, he said, son, Memorial Day is for those that made the ultimate sacrifice, but Veterans Day is for everybody because we all made a sacrifice. I don't think my dad actually saw combat during his service, but you know, you put the uniform of the country on. As I've said earlier today, much less in other settings today, you go through 13 weeks of basic training, you've made your commitment right off the bat, you know, as part of the process. And I have to say, it's interesting too, because there are many women now that are serving in the military today.
Oh, absolutely.
In a much more prominent way. We did have the waves and the whacks back in the day. You know, I think of Alice Phelps, you know, being a wave and, you know, signing up to join the
remember her.
Navy
Yeah.
and, you know, serving her country back during World War II. But, and then we just had Hilda Lakoff that we went to honor her, you and I and some other folks, when she turned 99. We've lost her subsequently, but she was in the Pentagon during World War II, and that must have been some experience. I wish I could have learned more about what, you know, Hilda could tell us. I'm sure there are things she couldn't tell us.
Top secret.
Top secret stuff. And you needed that. You needed the energy of women as well. My mom during World War II worked in a factory, Pratt Whitney Engines in Hartford, Connecticut. She was not a riveter. I asked her, I said, were you Rosie? She said, no, I was not a riveter, but she worked in a factory, and then all her life she wound up doing factory work because that was, you needed the women on the home front to do the jobs domestically that men would have done were they here, but they weren't here. You know, they were overseas fighting
God
war.
bless her.
So it's an interesting situation as we go forward. The let's just talk again one more time through. You mentioned their names, but tell us a little bit about Dan and Dana the people who serve so well are veterans when they call your office?
Yeah, all of my people, the service officers, are all veterans. And Danny's a combat vet, decorated combat vet.
Dan Griffin,
Dan Griffin.
right?
And there's Dana Versamo. He was actually the trainer for the American Legion, and he was the guy who would actually monitor all the claims going to Washington for the American Legion. And I took him from the Legion. They weren't happy about that, but we gave him a raise, and he's doing a great job. And then there's Charlotte Trotter, who is a retired Army Sergeant Major. She happens to be a minority, but she is just super.
Right.
And Sergeant Major, women, you mentioned
Yeah,
that.
that's impressive.
25% of the military is now women. And
Right.
they're expecting that to go to 45% within 5 years.
Right.
And God bless them. You know, they brought a new thinking to the military.
Right. Well, I'm very impressed. My confidential assistant here, Tracy Thompson Smith, is a veteran.
There you go.
You know, and
Yeah.
she's a pretty tough cookie. I mess with her. You know.
And then we got our secretaries, and I call them secretaries. They're chief cook and bottle washers.
they handle everything.
Christine Carbone, you know,
Right.
she's under pressure all the time. And then young gal, Chrissy Konecki, and you know, I've got Jeff DeMario, who's now a special assistant. You know, and we do a lot of things that are unheralded,
Right.
and they do everything that I can't do. Okay.
And we have some new offices for you. We know you needed to stretch your wings from the White Plains facility that you have. You're now down in New Rochelle,
Yeah,
but
that was
with a
great.
bigger footprint and better parking
Yeah.
and so forth.
You did a great thing for us when you learned that building was vacated, it had space. It's 420 North Avenue, New Rochelle, on right opposite the dollar store. It is the county probation department now, and we have ground floor access with parking for our constituents and veterans. And at the same time, we have double the space we had when we were in White Plains at 112 East Post Road.
Right.
But the problem over there was no parking outside.
Right.
And then on top of that, we had to go up four flights. So most people wouldn't take the elevator. A lot of them are post-stressed.
Right.
And then we'd be interviewing with people, and all of a sudden the meters would be running out. And I don't have to tell you about the meter maids running around White Plains. So that was a big improvement in our service. And as long as we can stay there for whatever amount of time, we could always look for something that might be just as good. But it works out because we have nobody on the shore side, really.
Right.
And that goes from Connecticut all the way down to the Bronx. So we're right in the middle of the Sound Shore, and it works out.
Well, just as we get up to Lasden, when we're in the southern part of the county, we get down to New Rochelle in the northern part of the county, we work it out. We figure out how we're going to be able to do all of these things. I know that we're showing intermittently certain information that people can access, the phone number and the email address that you can use to contact us, veteran@westchestergov.com.
Yep.
That is not the permanent or the normal email address for the purposes of this town hall. Since you're watching it, you can communicate to that address, and then Catherine Chaffee, who's our Director of Communications, will channel those questions or comments into Ron and his team. And then 995-2000 is the general county number. You can actually use that number to reach anybody in county government. But when you call, just ask for the Veteran Services Office, and then they can connect you through. Which sometimes that general number is easier than having the straight line number. Straight line number winds up going in if somebody's on the phone already, and when you have a couple of people picking up the phone and 30 people calling in, it becomes pretty difficult. You know, you wind up on extended hold, and we prefer not to have that. So, hopefully, you know, we can resolve that as we go forward. Catherine, do we have any other folks who have asked questions or comments from the field? Okay, very good. Well, we're not committed to take us all the way to the end of the line. This has been a terrific conversation with Ron Tochi from the Veteran Services Agency. We're very fortunate to have his skill set doing this. We hope we can have him for as long as he wants to do it. And you know, none of us are getting any younger. I'm not getting any younger, so I can understand that we'll look forward. But the one thing that we can be sure is that Westchester County, through all administrations, all Board of Legislative administrations have a commitment to our veterans community. And if you are watching this as a veteran, if you haven't interacted, if you have a need, call us, contact us, give us a chance to try to be helpful to you. Many of the decisions, as Ron points out, reside in the federal government. But you, the individual, calling into the federal government is going to face, quite an elaborate system of stops and goes that could take a lot of your time. And our people are more experienced in doing that. Depending on the nature of your ask, they'll know how to cut through the red tape if it's possible. Depends on what the need is. But at least you'll have somebody on your side fighting for you, just as you fought for us. And Ron, any closing thoughts that you want to share to the folks who may be watching?
No, I think this is great. I really want to thank you on behalf of all the veterans and families that depend on our services for allowing us to do what we do and make people understand very, very clearly that we do everything. There is nothing that involves a veteran that we either don't do ourselves or we can refer to an agency or some kind of an organization that can take care of it. So we are very, very proud to be called a all-exclusive, all-purpose agency. So just take care of yourselves, and God bless our troops, and God bless America.
Ron, we thank you for your service both to the nation and to the county. We thank you for watching. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. We'll have another one of our Town Hall series coming up in a couple of weeks. We'll announce it publicly. It'll be in this Wednesday 6 to 7 time slot as before. This is watchable online even after it's stopped being a live event. And you're welcome to contact us on anything. Hopefully, if there are any topics you'd like to see us address in other areas of public policy, we're going to try to use this forum until we get the green light from COVID. Maybe that vaccine comes through, and then we can do these things in public. And we would intend to have veterans and other meetings out in the community where you can come in person, and then you can have that conversation that always happens after the meeting is over, where somebody talks about something very specific. But in the meantime, thanks for watching, and stay safe, and we'll see you soon. Have a good night.